Hi everyone. We will be discussing the fundamentals of managerial economics. Let us start off with a headline or somewhat a case study in every chapter. This is titled Amcot loses $3.5 million, manager fired. Amcot was paying First National a hefty 7% rate to borrow short-term funds. Amcot then purchased the 3-year rights of Magic Word, a translation software package that converts generic French words into English for $20 million from its retained earnings. Ralph, the Amcot manager, projected $7 million annual sales for 3 years. Year 1 achieved the 7 million target sales, while years 2 and 3, the sales were halted. This was because Amcot lost the copyright infringement suit filed by Foreign Incorporated due to the violation of a small component of Magic Word and paid $1.7 million for damages. Amcot posted a year-end operation loss of $3.5 million and fired Ralph. Ralph felt like a scapegoat for being fired when the attorneys did not do their jobs before buying the rights to Magic Word. The question now is, do you know why Ralph was fired? This will be answered by the end of this chapter. Introduction. The discussion will unlikely provide answers on where to invest your money in order to get rich, because managerial economics is a valuable tool for analyzing business situations. In fact, business publications on the internet such as Bloomberg Businessweek and the Wall Street Journal feature top businesses that practice the basic tools of managerial economics. Just like there are news circulating that Apple will venture into automobiles, the termination of merger between Comcast, Time Warner Cable, and Charter, and Target to match or lower the price seen in any local competitor's printed ad. Here are some basic tools from managerial economics. Shape pricing and output decisions, optimize the production process and input mix, choose product quality, guide horizontal and vertical merger decisions, optimally design internal and external incentives. Management should be able to hire competent managers who can multitask and make swift decisions, because without practicing the basic tools from managerial economics, billions of dollars are wasted, which are happening yearly due to the decision making of inept managers. Managerial economics is not just for the Fortune 500 companies, but can also be useful for not for profit organizations. A food bank is able to plan on the most efficient way to distribute food to the needy. A manager is a person who directs resources to achieve a stated goal. Basically, a manager has the responsibility to lead the team in accomplishing the given task, responsibility on production, which includes maintenance of machines and allocate resources at lesser cost, and to make decisions on the product, price, or quality. The most important output for a manager is to make the company maximize its profits. Economics is the science of making decisions in the presence of scarce or limited resources. Resources are materials used in producing goods and services to achieve a goal. Decision making is important as there will be a time you have to give up one for another. A food bank may spend more on soup by spending less on fruits. Managerial economics is the study of directing scarce resources in the most efficient way to achieve a managerial goal. A manager is the host of decision by knowing what information is needed, then collect the data, then process the data. The end goal for this is to come up with a final decision. It is advisable to consult various departments in your organization, like the legal department, to clarify some laws that are related to your task, accounting department to provide cost data, marketing department to determine to which market does your product cater to, and other departments. Let us make a car engine as an example. First decision is to produce them in-house or outsource hundreds of parts from different manufacturers. Second is to decide to produce one type of car or several types. Third is the quantity. Fourth, retail price. Fifth, hire employees. Sixth, ensure that employees meet the expected output quantity and output quality. Seventh, study the strategies of competitors that may affect the decision making process. The economics of effective management. The nature of decisions depends on the primary goals of the manager. There are six basic principles of an effective manager. The first one is identify goals and constraints. Each goal should be defined. Different goals require different decisions. If the food bank's goal is to distribute in rural areas, the logistics it will use will be different from distributing in inner cities. Either you may need to use a truck or sometimes rent a boat. Constraints are an artifact of scarcity. The budget will affect the food bank's distribution of food to the needy. The second principle is to recognize the nature and importance of profits. We often relate profit as accounting profits, which formula is sales minus cost. However, economic profits is formulated as total revenue minus total opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is formulated as explicit or accounting cost of a resource plus the implicit cost of giving up its best alternative use. Opportunity cost is generally higher than accounting cost. An example for this would be a pizzeria. Your accountant shows the year-end revenues were $60,000 and the costs were $20,000. The accounting profits are $40,000 in total. You will have a higher accounting profit because it did not include the time you spent in running the business. Let us say you are employed and paid $20,000 yearly. The annual $20,000 is the opportunity or implicit cost of time which will be deducted from the $40,000 accounting profits. Thus, your economic profits would be $20,000. The misconception of maximizing profits lead to being self-interested, which is undesirable to some. According to Adam Smith's classic line from The Wealth of the Nation, it is not out of the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. He simply means that profits ultimately meet the needs of society. An example would be if you do not earn a living as a singer, the society may value your other talents in other types of employment, maybe shift into office work or do construction. The principle here is that profits signal the resource holders where the resources are most highly valued by society, which will eventually lead into improving the total welfare of society. Knowing that the company or your company earns superior profits, this serves as a signal to competitors to double their efforts and work harder. The five forces framework pioneered by Michael Porter, organizes complex issues in managerial economics that impact the sustainability of industry profits. Entry heightens competition and it comes in various directions. The formation of new companies. For example, Dave Thomas opened Wendy's in the 1970s after he left KFC. Globalization strategies by foreign companies. Example, Toyota has been selling cars since 1930s but waited until 1950s to enter the US market. Introduction of new product lines by existing firms. For example, Apple started as a computer manufacturer and now sells iPhones and iPads. Power of input suppliers may tend to lessen industry profits because inputs are not standardized, relationship specific investments are not minimal, government restrictions are not applied. To lessen the supplier power, inputs must be standardized as well as alternative inputs must be available. Relationship specific investments should be minimal and apply government restrictions like price ceilings and other controls. Turning the reasons shown in the screen around would limit the suppliers in taking profit from the firms in the industry. The power of buyers is to negotiate favorable terms for the products or services. Industries only serve high volume customers for a few because buyer concentration is low and customer power is higher in consumer markets. Its power tends to be lessened when customer switching cost to other products is high. Fourth, industry rivalry. It tends to be less intense in concentrated industries with fewer firms. It tends to be more intense when customer switching costs are low and with little product differentiation. Product differentiation in terms of prices, quantities, capacity, and quality or service attribute can impact profitability. Last force would be substitutes and complements. Profits depend on the price and value of interrelated products and services. The presence of close substitutes can wear down industry profitability. Chapter 1 only gives an overview of the 5 forces framework and will go into details in the succeeding chapters. The third principle of an effective manager would be to understand incentives. Incentives affect the use of firms' resources and induce minimal effort from your team. Let's say Mr. O opened a restaurant and hired a manager just because he refused to watch over his business. Days went by and the restaurant kept on losing money because Mr. O did not look after his self interest, was not physically present in running the business, and just simply assumed that the manager should be doing a great job with a $75,000 annual salary. His unwillingness to run the business was the main purpose on hiring the manager. And since there are no incentives given, the manager does not have the drive to work harder and does not mind if the restaurant is profitable since she receives the same salary. Shareholders are owners of the company. Even if they are not visible in the company, the CEO is given incentives plan or bonuses in order for him to be an effective manager. Of course, the CEO gets incentive when the firm is profitable. If the firm's performance is poor, the CEO receives no incentive or worse, gets fired. Incentives are also applicable to the lower ranks in the firm and usually are based on commissions. The fourth principle is understanding markets. There are two sides to every transaction in the market, a consumer and a producer. The power of consumers and producers in the marketplace is limited by three sources of rivalry in every transaction. Consumer producer rivalry happens when the customer negotiates or find low prices while producer negotiates high prices. Consumers will not buy if prices are high, while producers will not sell if prices are low. An example for this would be the negotiation between the prospective customer and a car salesman. The car salesman usually upsells, while the client would ask for a discount or freebies. The consumer-consumer rivalry reduces the negotiating power of consumers in the marketplace, especially when the goods are few or limited. If client B pays $12,000 while client A pays $10,000, client B, who pays the highest bid or offer, has the right to purchase the goods than client A. This usually occurs when consumers eye certain items during auctions. The producer-producer rivalry occurs when multiple sellers compete with one another in the marketplace to service a client. Firms would often target customers by serving the best quality at a lower price. Oftentimes, producers open their stores beside each other to gauge who has more catch to customers. We usually encounter these scenarios on gas stations, either they are beside each other or across the street, and their prices are usually visible to the public.